There you are. It's Alexander, or better known as Loomis when I'm online. We got a real treat for y'all today. This story is an absolute banger. It's called The Devil Tried to Buy My Soul 14 Times Now. I drive a hard bargain. It was written by Yo Bro 1001. He's pretty popular on the r slash no sleep and r slash scary stories subreddit, so be sure to check him out. Link to the story is in the description. I love this story, y'all. It was really interesting and it has an awesome twist at the end, so be sure to stick around for that. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it, subscribe, and turn on bell notifications. With all that being said, let's get right into it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. The first time the devil tried to buy my soul, I was 10. I just failed my math test. Man, I sucked at math. And I'd spent all recess crying. While this may sound like a terribly dramatic reaction, and no doubt was, in my defense, I was on the verge of repeating grades. My militantly strict parents had informed me multiple times, along with the slew of punishments that would result should such a travesty occur. Frankly, I'm still not sure who's worse after all this time, the devil or them. Anyway, I bawled through recess and went back to my classroom early. My teacher wasn't there. Nobody was. So I put my head on my desk. "Poor kid," said a voice behind me. A man with slick black hair and a pinstripe suit leaned against one of the tables. He looked normal. A new vice principal, maybe? Except for the spiraling horns jutting from his forehead. "Your parents won't be too happy about this, will they?" I covered my face with my hands. "What would you give to get an A on that test instead?" I looked up. "Would you trade me this?" He held up my favorite truck-shaped eraser. But, but I got an F." "Well, would you?" I nodded. "Not big enough," he said. "What about your shoes?" I considered, then nodded again. Who was this man? "What about something else?" he said. "What about your soul?" I stared at him. He picked a piece of lint from his shoulder and studied it disinterestedly. His horns glinted in the fluorescent classroom lights. "That's not worth it," I finally said. Lightweight. Then he strolled from the classroom. I did repeat the grade that year. He came again when I was 12. There was this girl I liked, Lucy Mae Johnson, the prettiest girl in the 5th grade. I looked her up recently, and she did indeed become a model later on, so I feel validated in my choice. Well, I asked her to the 5th grade social. She flat out laughed at me. I didn't cry this time. Instead, I grabbed a bat and smashed the old playground in our backyard until the brittle, sun-baked slide was in shards. When I went to take a go at the swing set, he was sitting on one of them. Such a large temper for such a small boy. Before I could speak, he continued. "I could see you're busy. I'll keep this brief. How would you like it if Lucy Mae changed her mind about the dance?" "It's a social," I said stupidly. Because even if normal me would have indeed asked important questions like, "Who are you?" he'd caught me during 2 times I was too emotional to think rationally. That was the point, I suppose. "And the marriage with her," he added. "If that's important, that could be thrown in. What do you say?" "For what?" I asked. "Really? Must we rehash already tread territory? Your soul. Will you trade it for Lucy Mae?" I adjusted the bat in my grip. Where were my parents? How has he tracked me here to my backyard? As I calmed down, the more rational, more foreboding thoughts finally clawed their way in. People can't be bought. Leave now, or I'll smash your skull in, I told him. He rolled his eyes. That isn't how that works. But when I moved towards him, he snapped and vanished. Literally vanished. It continued like that for a decade, me going through some perceived tragedy every year or two. Him appearing with a seemingly idyllic solution for the small price of my eternal soul. There was the time I spent the night in the hospital groaning as I tried to pass multiple kidney stones. My liver sucks. Let's not get into that though. Then there was the time my parents forced us to move to Wyoming in the middle of high school. Then the time my mom got cancer. I might have been tempted to accept his offer that time, but we thought she was on the uphill when the horned man showed up in my room. She wasn't. She ended up passing. But tragedy aside, I said no that time, just like I did every time. Each time I turned him away, each time he left, always with a small smile and a glint in his eyes that seemed to whisper, "See you soon." For a while, in college, the visits stopped. For 3 or 4 years almost, but that only increased my fascination with the experiences. They didn't frighten me per se, though perhaps they should have. Looking back, I think they started early enough I never had a chance to be scared by them. The same way that children who grow up on sailboats never really fear the water like inland kids might. My soul wasn't at risk. I would never trade it, so why fear? Instead, I obsessed over the visits. I wrote down every last detail I could remember from each one, then read them like scripture. What shade were his horns? How tall was he? What accent did he speak with? It probably won't surprise you that I majored in moral philosophy. For hours a day, I debated with my professors and fellow students about the nature of reality and the truth of morality. I won scholarships. I wrote papers my professors gushed over. One particular paper discussed the idea of false dichotomies. The incorrect belief that only two options exist when, in fact, there is a third. Specifically, I wrote about false dichotomy in relation to the afterlife. People often assume there are two possibilities, either a heaven and a hell, or nothing at all. But what if there was a third option everyone refused to consider? What if only hell existed? The paper was recognized at a national level. Perhaps it's conceited to admit, but I awed my school with my elevated thoughts and ideas. Little did they know, I had to step up on them. I was working with universal axioms like an afterlife and souls that they were only theorizing about. I longed for another visit. I'd debate the man, I decided. I'd pester him with questions and test the extent of information he would give me. All the while, I ignored the fact that he only ever came during a tragedy. Enter my roommate, 21 years old, party obsessed, owner of a sleek sports car, in a disregard for the law. Put all that together, and what do you get? The man with horns showed up about a week after the funeral. I sat on my bed, staring at my old roommate's own bed. The sheets still rumpled. He'd been my best friend. One stupid, drunken decision, he was gone. Been a minute, the man with horns said from the doorway. Thought I'd take the chance to debate, to philosophize. I didn't. Can you even do that? I asked. Bring somebody back to life? I can do anything I please. I won't. Won't what? Trade my soul for you to bring my roommate back. He shouldn't be dead, but I know it isn't worth it. The sides of the man's lips twitched. I haven't made an offer yet. I waited. No one at your university will ever die from a car crash again. Would you trade your soul for that? I gaped. For the first time in my life, I actually considered it. A boon like that. It was possibly worth it. That was dozens of lives, hundreds, potentially. If I considered how many would add up over time. How about everybody, at any college? I asked. He frowned. That isn't how this works. You don't set the offer. And he did something he'd never done before. The man walked out on his own, without me dismissing him. Our visits changed after that. I knew to expect him. I dreaded it. But I prepared myself emotionally. Whenever something terrible happened, another friend's death, a lost job, a divorce, he showed up. The offers were different now. Before he'd always offered an answer to my problems. Now the things he brandished seemed almost unrelated. I got fired? How about an ending to the recession? My wife left me for another man? How about all corrupt politicians get exposed? They got bigger each time. World peace, an end to all hunger. No more sickness or disease, even of the mind. It was no longer a question of whether I would sell my soul. It was only a question of how big a deal I could make before I relented. I didn't cherish the idea. Eternal damnation and all that. But at this point, it was the responsible thing for me to do. The right thing. The price of my one soul could end so much suffering. I would wait until the end of my life, when he was promising me the universe, and I would finally give in. And then one day, my son got sick. It was a lump on his chest at first, nothing too concerning. I suspected it came from the coughing his seasonal allergies caused. But like a dutiful father, I took him in. Cancer. Terminal. We tried chemo anyway, but the chances were slim. He only got weaker and weaker. I'd been through this before. My mom had seemed strong. She hadn't made it. There was no chance for my son. From the start, I knew it. So one day, when my son only had days, maybe hours left, I left my ex-wife at the hospital with him and went home to my study. I poured myself a glass of wine. I waited. Hours passed. I barely moved. I poured a second glass. I waited some more. Around 4 a.m, he arrived. My heart leapt, but I said nothing. This had happened enough times, 13 to be exact, that I knew how this worked. He set the terms, not me. The man with horns smiled. He took the seat across from me and accepted the second glass of wine. So. He drank the glass. Business then, he said. Very well. Would you trade your soul for the life of your own son? I choked back a sob. Until that moment, I hadn't truly known if he would make the offer. His past ones had grown bigger and bigger, but less related to my personal problems. I'd secretly feared he would offer me something like the elimination of worldwide unhappiness or to fix global warming. Except he'd known, hadn't he? The man with horns had known that out of anything he'd ever offered me, this was the most valuable. I accept, I said. He swirled his finger around the lip of the glass. He considered. Finally, his lips pulled back in a sharp-toothed grin. No. What? No trade. But you made the offer. You set the terms. You came, and I agreed. And... My heart stopped. My every muscle seized, and my lungs constricted to the size of acorns. What is this? The man ran a hand through his perfect hair. A false dichotomy. You assumed either you rejected the deal or you accepted it and lost your soul. There was always a third possibility. You lied. I didn't. He stood to leave. The man strode towards the door. But before he could leave, I leapt at him. I seized his arm. The man with horns snarled and shoved me against the wall, eyes glowing a hellfire red. I never lied, he hissed. I merely asked if you would trade your soul for some fancy or other. Questions, not promises. Please. I was sobbing now. My son. Save him. Take my soul, please. Impossible. That isn't how this works. Souls like yours can't be traded in a single weak instant. They can only be traded after a lifetime of wickedness and wrongdoing. The very act of sacrificing yourself for your son just proves you're too good. Then why? I demanded. Why the visits? Why did you do this to me? The man with horns let me go, and I fell to the floor, vision blurry. One last time, he smirked. I needed some way to entertain myself. He left. 3 days later, my son passed away. The typical things happened. My ex-wife and I mourned. We had a funeral. I even packed up and moved to an apartment. The reminder of his room was too much. For months, I curled into myself, pushing everyone else away, hating my life. And then I realized something. I realized I lived within walking distance of a veterinarian clinic. The next day, the clinic was on the news. It had burned down. They could only be traded after a lifetime of wickedness and wrongdoing. That's what he said. You're too good. When the man with horns pointed out my false dichotomy, he was telling the truth. There aren't only two options, but neither are there three. There's a fourth. A nearby middle school also burned down recently. A night security guard was trapped inside when it happened. People in my town have started going missing. The police still don't know who's taking them. Very soon, a commercial train with 100 passengers will crash. And after that, though, perhaps not for a long, long time, after many more innocent deaths, my son will open his eyes. He'll breathe. He'll put his hand to his warm chest and feel his soul.